Thank you. Did we have Lily on yet, Katie?
I do not see her, unfortunately.
Okay. And you haven't heard anything from her?
I have not, unfortunately.
Okay.
Well, we can interrupt at whatever point she comes on and try to get everyone caught up, with our apologies to the Vietnamese speaking community.
Indeed. Well, thank you, Happy, because you chimed in at the perfect point, because I'm going to hand it over to you actually in a moment. Let me just say that we want this to be a conversational meeting. So please, before I turn this over to Happy for an introduction, go ahead and at any point during the meeting, raise your hand or have any reactions, or use the chat feature, which are all located at the bottom of your screens. We do want to hear your feedback throughout, and we have a lot of slides to get through, and definitely don't want this just to be talking at you. We want it to be a discussion. So with that, thank you for joining us. I'm going to turn it over to our Executive Director, Happyhanes.
Thank you so much, Molly, and good evening. Welcome to everyone on this beautiful Denver, Colorado evening. My name is Happyhanes, and I'm proud to serve as the Executive Director of Denver Parks and Recreation. And we are so excited to get started on Westwood Recreation Center. I can hardly contain my excitement. But I want to first start out with important business that helps guide all of our work in Denver Parks and Recreation. And that is thanking the Denver City Council and the Denver American Indian Commission for developing a land acknowledgement, which I will share with you in a moment, and for granting permission for Denver Parks and Recreation to use it to begin our process. Denver Parks and Recreation honors and acknowledges that the land on which we reside is the traditional territory of the Ute, Cheyenne, and Arapaho peoples. We also recognize the 48 contemporary tribal nations that are historically tied to the lands that make up the state of Colorado. We honor elders, past, present, and future, and those who have stewarded this land throughout generations. We also recognize that government, academic, and cultural institutions were founded upon and continue to enact exclusions and erasures of Indigenous peoples. May this acknowledgement demonstrate a commitment to working to dismantle ongoing legacies of oppression and inequities, and recognize the future and current contributions of Indigenous communities in Denver. With the future Westwood Recreation Center, we continue to honor the responsibility to be good stewards of the land. So thank you for being here and joining us in this effort. This is our first public meeting. There will be more, and want to share a little bit of background about how we got to this place tonight. I don't have to tell most of you how long this recreation center has been a dream of the community. Let's just say a very long time. But in 2017, you really made it become a reality thanks to your many advocacy efforts. You made sure the recreation center was included in the 2017 Elevate Bond, which fully funds the acquisition, design, and construction for the recreation center at $37.5 million. Finally, in 2019, we were able to acquire the land. After studying several sites, we narrowed it down to its current location on Morrison Road and West Walsh Place, which we think is going to be a perfect place for the community. Tonight, we begin the design process with the ultimate goal of having a Westwood Recreation Center that is authentically Westwood. And as we always do with new facilities or new parks or new recreation centers, We start the process with you, the community. So thank you for joining us this evening. You are an important and imperative part of this process. We can't do this alone. So thank you. Don't hold back. Let us know what you're thinking and enjoying in the conversation this evening. Molly, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thanks so much, Happy. Very much appreciated. Now I'll briefly go over the agenda. We have, as I said, we have a lot to get to today. We are going to give a little more background. Thanks, Happy, for teeing it up. We are going to go over survey results, which we did back last summer. I hope you all filled it out, but if you didn't, we'd love to hear your thoughts now. And then we're going to do some interactive opportunity here with kind of going over what activities we could see in the rec center. And then hopefully we'll have time left for discussion. But again, feel free to raise your hand or chat at any point in this presentation. Right now, I'm going to take a minute to introduce the team very briefly. I'm Molly. I'm part of the planning department in Parks and Rec. I'm a senior planner. And we also have Craig, who you'll hear from in a minute, Coronado, who's the capital project supervisor. Jesus Orancio, who's working everything behind the scenes for us tonight, who's the community engagement specialist. And Gary Cahill, who's our project manager on this. He's a principal of Dunakilly. Katie, I'm going to turn it over to you to we've hired wonderful consultants from Anderson Mason Dale to help us with the design. Katie, go ahead and introduce yourself and your team.
Sounds great. Thank you, Molly. My name is Katie Spicer. I'm a project manager with Anderson Mason Dale Architects. We are so excited and privileged to be your architects for this rec center, and really look forward to the process working with you all. We've been in practice here in Denver for over 40 years, and civic and institutional work are at the core and heart of our practice. Also joining me on the line is our principal, Joey Carrasquillo, and a designer, Jennifer Lozano. And we also have our recreation center specialists from Esenza Architecture on the line, Krista Plaza and Melissa Lenning. And also Dr. Lydia Prado of Lifespan Local as a community engagement consultant. So from here, I think I'll turn you over to Craig Coronado to talk a little bit more about the project back.
Yes, good evening. My name is Craig Coronado. As Molly introduced me, I'm a capital project supervisor, and that means I was brought in to help shepherd our Elevate Denver bond projects from design through construction. And I'm privileged to have been involved in this project ever since we started. I look forward to working to see it through. It's taken a couple of years to get to this point. And if you could advance the slide, I'll talk a little bit about the project itself. We, as was mentioned, and Happy introduced the overview, the community supported a $37.5 million Elevate Denver bond budget. 23 million of that is allocated to construction. The rest of it was for land acquisition, demo, site cleanup, design, what we call the soft costs of getting this built. So the program allows us to build a 40,000 square foot building, which we feel is appropriate for a neighborhood recreation center. We went through the site selection process and selected this site after looking at several sites around the Westwood neighborhood. Go ahead and advance the next slide. One of the major criteria of selecting the site was its location. And this one was ideal in terms of being centrally located and right on Morrison Road. So it's going to be walkable for many. It has plentiful on-street parking opportunities around it, but it's of a site size. And actually our target was a 3-acre site, and we ended up with 2.9. So that was pretty close. It allows us to use the site as well as the building for recreational activities, for parking, for improvements that benefit the neighborhood. Go ahead to the next one. A little closer view of the site. It did consist of a car wash. We called it the car wash site when we identified it as a potential opportunity, but it also includes an adjacent site that included some small residential structures, and there was a small shopping center there as well. But again, you can see the context here. A lot of redevelopment has happened in the area. There's a lot of mix of uses that will, we think, complement the recreation center use. Go ahead on to the next one. Here's a view of it before the demolition occurred. So it can, those of you that are familiar with the site, you can see the car wash and the shopping center and the other structures that were on the site. And on the next slide, you can see what it looks like now. Go ahead. Yeah, it's ready to build on. So we're really excited to be able to, use this blank slate now to create the vision that you, the community, wants for this site. Go ahead to the next one. So the team was introduced. We're excited to have such a strong team. Anderson Mason Dale I've had the opportunity to work with in the past, and you'll hear from them. Ascenza Architecture is involved in the recreation program, and Lifespan Local, you may know, as a local community representative. We could not, we mean Denver Parks and Recreation, the city and county of Denver, couldn't do this project without not only your involvement in the community, but a really strong team that's rooted in the community to advance your vision and goals. On to the next one. Here's a brief overview of the schedule. It does take quite some time. As you can see, we hope to have our grand opening in 2026, which is a couple years out. And that yellow box on the left shows you where we are right now. So we're really, even though we've been working on this for a couple of years, we're really kicking off the design process right now. And through this year, we'll be working on looking at alternatives and opportunities and gaining input and coming up with ideas. And so it's a great time to get engaged in this process. Next slide. So zooming into that yellow box, this is what will be happening over the next 12 months. There'll be several public meetings. This is the first. We're also working with a community advisory group that is representative of the community and is also providing input along the way. We'll also have technical advisory groups from working with operations staff from the Recreation Center group, and also with other technical experts to make sure that this design not only meets community requirements, but is state of the art. And then the next slide. And so here's a brief list of the various opportunities for you all to participate. As I mentioned, there's public meetings. We'll have focus groups that'll be developing where you can really get hands-on input into the design. The community advisory group that I mentioned is up and running, and if you don't know who they are, please ask us, because we will put you in touch with them, but they are your representatives, and they speak on behalf of the larger community. We'll have various events in the communities where this team will be there in the neighborhood. Hopefully future public meetings will be in person. We hope we don't have to do these virtual meetings forever, although they seem to work fairly well, but hopefully the next one will be in person. You can also email us directly or contact us directly. Molly is our project manager, and Jesus, and we're all available to listen to your input. And then we'll have regular updates on the website. So we hope to hear from you tonight and in the future. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Molly to follow up.
Thanks, Craig. Appreciate it. And I do see that our Vietnamese interpreter has hopped on. So I want to give a minute to make sure that's set up correctly. Lily, do I have you with us?
Yes, yes, I'm here because I don't have the link because I just received the link today, right now.
I apologize for that. Let's go ahead and get the translation set up. And make sure, I'm not sure what we need to do. Will you go ahead and take the reins of that for a second?
Okay, I don't see.
I need to start it first, Lily, and make sure to add you. I apologize.
Thank you, Jesus. So hold on, this is a good stopping point though. Thank you for bearing with us. And apologize.
I open Google
Hay
link.
una pregunta, sorry que los interrumpa, hay una pregunta aquí que qué significaba el círculo donde están las diferentes organizaciones como LISPAM.
Yep. Just that's the general question of what does it mean?
Sí, es un mensaje que me están enviando, ajá, que qué significa ese círculo con esas organizaciones.
Sure. Yeah, thanks, Norma. The organizations, let me hold that question and let me answer it once we get the Vietnamese interpretation going.
And it has started.
Okay, great.
Molly,
Okay, great. Thank you, Jesus. Okay, so now I will answer that question. So the circle, and Craig, feel free to jump in too, is just our project team. So it's Denver Parks and Recreation, and then Anderson Masondale are architects. Ascenza Architecture is our recreation architects kind of consulting on the project, and Lifespan Local is Lydia Prado helping with community engagement.
Ok, entonces el ISPAM va a ser el alcance comunitario para todas las reuniones de centro de recreación.
She certainly helps. We're all a team, so we all do it together, but yes.
Muchachos, entonces Westwood Unidos ya no existe en apoyo. Entonces Westwood Unidos ya quedó fuera de eso.
No. Westwood Unidos is part of the community advisory group, which we did not list individually.
Ok, bueno, para los que están escuchando.
Yeah, no problem. Sorry for the misunderstanding on that one, but let's go ahead and continue because we have a lot of slides to get through. So I will go ahead and talk about survey results, which I know Norma is on the community advisory group. So our community advisory group has heard these results before, so bear with us, but I'm gonna try and get all of you up to speed. I hope you saw the survey that we had open last summer. The survey, go ahead to the next slide. So the survey was really to get some initial feedback from you all about what you want to see in the rec center. We have plenty of ideas, plenty of other rec centers that we can look at. But as Happy said, we want to make this uniquely Westwood. So we really want all the ideas you have. Of course, we have to stick within a certain budget, as Craig was saying, but we're gonna be willing to make that work and really going to try and give you guys the things you want. So go ahead to the next slide. So this was one of the questions. Sorry for kind of all the different languages, but we want to be sure everyone understands. It says, what are the primary reasons you and your household will visit the recreation center? And as you can see, the top things here are exercise and aquatics. Let me be clear, we've heard loud and clear, and you'll see throughout these survey results as I go through them, that you guys are really energetic about swimming. We fully intend that this recreation center will have an indoor pool. And then, of course, we also fully intend that it will have exercise. So those are really good things. I will say that some of the things that rated lower on the list were like special events, socializing, things like that, after school programs, but that doesn't by any means mean that they won't be included. Go ahead to the next slide. So this is kind of a different way of asking the same question. What are the primary reasons you and your household will visit the recreation center? This was our other fill in the blank category. So this is what we heard back. The blue responses are the top responses. And because this was kind of like a word cloud, we did not interpret these. So let me go ahead and say that the most popular responses were the indoor pool and art classes. And then the second most popular responses were dancing, skating, a sauna steam room, and senior programming. And I will say that we did have the survey available in Spanish, English, and Vietnamese. So this is an accumulation of all the languages, not just English. And then I do want to reiterate that while we will have a pool, the pool and the amenities have not been decided on. That's what we want to dive into a little bit tonight. Go ahead, next slide. So this was another question on the survey. What specific activities do you want available at the Westwood Recreation Center? Arts and crafts, exercise, lap swimming, and leisure swimming were all rose to the top in this one. Futsal, handball kind of rose to the bottom. Again, doesn't mean that we won't have them. It's just something to note. Go ahead, next slide. Again, asking the question in a little bit different way. Are there any additional activities not listed above that you would like to see available at Westwood Recreation Center? So the blue is where we got the most responses: Zumba, pool, classes in general, yoga, and soccer. I will say for soccer, we may not have availability given the size, the outdoor space that we decide on. We may not have ability for a full soccer field, but we can certainly be creative about perhaps doing a half soccer field or having a small practice court or something like that. So that is something we can definitely talk about. Next slide, please. What excites you most about Westwood Recreation Center? So this slide I personally love because you can see community is the #1 response overwhelmingly that we got. It's the community that's really going to make this recreation center a place that you will all go, hopefully for a very long time. And we hope that Westwood Recreation Center will really be a staple of the community. Go ahead, next slide. So this goes into our demographic information because it's kind of where we want to focus more of our community engagement efforts in the future. We are very proud of the survey and we really do think we heard from a lot of you, but we know we can always do better. And we will, as Craig mentioned, this is just the beginning. So we have focus groups that are going to happen, more public meetings, more outreach to do. And this kind of shows where we're thinking that we need to hear more from people, but we'd love to hear from you all about how we can make sure this is an inclusive process. So this shows that, we are hearing from everywhere from single family households to multi-generational households. Go ahead, next slide. And then this is, please indicate the ages of people in your household. We know that Westwood has a significant senior population that we're likely not hearing from, and we want to be sure that we do, as well as those pesky 13 to 17-year-olds. If there are any on tonight, we would love to hear from you all, because we really want this recreation center to be your home. And I know you're on your phones, so you can answer our surveys, and please make comments in the chat if you're here. But we want to hear from those 13 to 17-year-olds. If you're parents of them, get them into our public meetings, especially since we really hope the next one will be in person. Next slide, please. And so this is ethnicity. Specify your ethnicity and the ethnicity of others in your household. I'm just going to read it. So because I know this doesn't have interpretation, it says 67% are Hispanic, Latino, or Spanish, and then 35% are white, and everything below there is 10%. So this is another example of, we know we need to do better. We can reach more. We are really striving to hear from the Vietnamese community. But again, this is kind of who we've heard from so far. Thank you. Next slide. And then this goes into, is broken into kind of, when we look at the results, what are we really looking at in general in terms of spaces that could be in the recreation center? So you'll see that fitness is really wanted. So that is kind of a room or space in the recreation center. There'll definitely be a fitness center. Swimming, there'll be a pool, multi-purpose classroom, outdoor recreation, and a multi-purpose studio, all rose to the top of when we're starting to really look at the design of the building, and we're starting to look at those rooms. Next slide, please. And so these all kind of went towards the bottom. Again, if they're at the bottom right now, it doesn't mean they won't be included in our final design. It just means we need to hear from you that you want these things. So a community kitchen, kid watch, which is where, you know, you would drop off the kids while you go exercise or do that art class you want to do. A playground, whether that be indoor or outdoor, climbing, and then a gymnasium. All right, next slide, please. So I'm going to turn this next portion over to Katie. You all have been very quiet on the chat. So this is the portion where I hope you all will speak up, either go ahead and raise your hands or go in the chat, but we definitely want to hear from you during this portion, even though we do have a lot of stuff to get through. So Katie, I'll hand it over to you. Thanks so much.
Great. Thank you, Molly. So the Katie from Anderson Masondale Architects again. We're hoping to enjoy a little bit more of an interactive component of the presentation with you now, though, as Molly mentioned, definitely feel free to continue using the chat. So it's really our first job as architects before we start drawing anything to understand what activities you really want in this building so that we can begin to understand what types of spaces are the most important to provide. We know that we only have so much room on the site and so much budget to spend, so it could be that we might need to prioritize some different types of spaces over others. So that's where it's really important for us to understand what your big priorities are for what activities you want to do in the rec center. And that survey result that Molly just shared is a really wonderful start. But we want to check in with you all, make sure, you know, did the survey get it right? Or maybe priorities have changed, or maybe we'll show you some images today that you didn't think of when the survey first came up. So from here, I'm going to go to kind of a fun starter question here. Because we are virtual here, we are going to use the Zoom polling feature. Now, if we were in person, we would love to just talk to you face to face or have everyone come up and speak, but this will be our tool to get to know one another and experiment with the Zoom tool. So before we answer this question and before Jesus will launch this poll, I'll just mention that we'll be showing you some different series of images of different kinds of activities that will occur in some basic kinds of categories in a rec center, like aquatics or swim, gym, fitness, and things like that. And we'll have 8 of these categories and a series of images with each category. So we'll show you and all these images and all of these activity ideas. And at the end of each section, you will basically put in a vote for your favorite 2 or your favorite 3 top priorities that you want to see in the rec center. And it doesn't mean that we won't have more activities that are available. Luckily, I mean, we want to design a building that is as flexible as possible and can host as many activities as we can. But it is important for us to understand your priorities and hear about any more activities that we might not be seeing. And so if you are seeing something as we talk about climbing or as we talk about a multi-purpose studio, and you have a really great idea of something that you want to do in the rec center, but you don't see that pop up, just jot it down. And remember, because we'll have an open-ended question at the end where you can use the chat or raise your hand and suggest those activities, as you can do at any time as well. So at the end of each section, we'll have some images show up. You will vote for your top priorities or your favorite activities. And then we'll be able to see the results right after the poll closes. We'll spend about 30 seconds doing a vote and then look at what is really rising to the top as a really exciting or important activity for everyone. So with this, we can do this sample question just so that we can all get familiar with the Zoom poll. This is just a fun question. So you'll see a poll pop up soon, and it will be in all the polls too, all 3 languages, and say, what is your favorite recreational activity to do in the Westwood neighborhood now? So you should see this poll come up. You might see it. I'm just checking my coworker screen for mine. I'm going to move mine to the side so that it doesn't get confusing with what's your poll and what's showing up for me. So you can select any of these. This is just a 1 answer question, and then hit submit. And in about 20 or 30 seconds, Jesus will close the poll and the answers will come up. So I'll let you review. And if you don't see your favorite activity, that's totally fine. This is just a fun question. You can hit the other button.
Great. Thank you, Katie. Now that it's slowing down, I'll give about another 5 seconds for people to get in their responses, and we could be able to show the responses to people.
Great. Okay. Is everyone else seeing these responses come up as well besides me? Okay, I'll keep mine off to the side, but we can see obviously as makes sense with the survey results, running, walking, jogging, and fitness are all great options, but lots of popularity for the other activities, soccer, aerobics, and Zumba, basketball. I know that other is only 3%, but I'm sure you guys have other great ideas that you like to do in the neighborhood too. Well, great. Well, so that was a great little trial question here. And then from here, we will launch into showing you some images that are to do with swimming and aquatics. And we'll show you 6 images that are all about the activities that you might want to do. We know that aquatics and swim is going to be a super exciting part of this building. And there's actually a pretty broad array of different kinds of swimming and aquatics activities that you can do. The most obvious and probably most flexible would be a lap pool. So lap swimming, obviously the lines can be shortened or moved to make a free open swim area, and can also host swim lessons with a pool or function like this. Go to the next one. So this is a pretty fun option that some of you may have seen called a lazy river. There's a very gentle current to the water so that you can either float along or walk along, or if you're a younger person than myself, maybe you'll just be playing and having lots of fun in the water. It can be a much more active and more kid-friendly kind of environment. Another option is actually physically, it's very similar as far as what you put in. There's still a walking path as a therapy pool. However, this one is tuned for a little bit of a slower pace. It it could be great for older adults and seniors who might want to do this for some therapy walking. You can see there's actually what we would call a massage waterfall in the background. So you can stand under it and get a free shoulder massage there. But it really uses some of the same parts and pieces that a lazy river does. There's a small current of water and a walking path and often a warmer temperature. And you can also see that there is an accessible ramp. So there aren't steps that you have to contend with to get in a pool. You can walk down a ramp to get in. Interactive play features can be a lot of fun for multiple age groups, just like a playground in the water. Oftentimes you can just walk right in a very shallow water and be open to the rest of the pool environment so everyone can stay together as a family. And another really fun option too are water slides. You may have seen both indoor options and outdoors. A lot of the times they end up poking out of the building just to save the space inside. The last image we'll look up is hot tubbing, which probably everyone is familiar with. Very hot water, powerful jets for massage and relaxation. So from here, I do want to pause and ask if there's any questions or if you want any more information about the different activities that we just saw. If you want to either use the chat or raise your hand, either myself or our recreation specialists from Essenza will be able to answer your questions. We'll just pause for a little bit if there are any questions. I'm not seeing any. Molly, I don't know if you're able to see any raised hands, but I'm not seeing it. Oh, I have a question. Yay.
Yeah. I don't see any on my end. Go ahead.
Wonderful. Thank you, Michelle. So Michelle asked, can there be a combination of these activities or do we need to choose just one? And you do not need to choose just one. Either in the building necessarily, we could probably provide multiple of these, but in the survey question that will pop up soon, we'll ask you to pick your 2 favorite activities. It doesn't mean that these will be the only 2 that'll be in the building or that it's even going to be those 2, but it's a way to help us understand your priorities as to what's most important. I see another question came in too. I have one, can we have them all? Very good question. But unfortunately, we do have a limited budget and a limited size of our site, so we probably can't have all of them. Some get to be quite large, but that's part of the part of prioritizing these activities. We can certainly do our best. And if it turns out that all of the swimming activities are so much more important than everything else, it's all about the priorities and finding where to spend our budget. And I have a comment from Josh here. Survey felt a little flawed in that our favorite activities to do in Westwood are probably already supported. And what we want from the rec center is supportive things we don't have. For example, there are already very popular cooking and Zumba classes, that's true, offered on Morrison, futsal across the street and soccer courts at Garfield Lake Park, but not indoor options for the winter. That's a really great comment and definitely something that we will look into as we move into the next steps from here. Right now, we're talking a lot about activities and ideas and what everyone's top priorities are. But we're also definitely going to look around the neighborhood and see, as you mentioned, there are 2 futsal courts right now within a block or less of our site. So we don't want to be redundant with our resources, of course, so that will definitely be a part of the exercise. And if you are speaking to the first survey question we did just now, a few minutes ago, that was just a play question. So that one isn't part of the survey that Molly went through was a much more robust survey than my little made up question that we did just to play with Zoom. So, but understood. All right, seeing lots more. Unfortunately, I unfortunately cannot read
Katie?
Spanish. Yes, go ahead.
I was just going to bring that up.
Wonderful, thank you.
And I think this might be the last one we take as we launch the poll. That way we could move some of the other activities.
Sure.
The question translates to why the limit? So why the limit on the options?
Mm-hmm.
And then what other amenities do you want to put? So what other things may be in the recreation center?
Mm-hmm. Also great. Yeah, so oh, I think I'm hearing myself on echo, sorry. So another great question. So that the priorities are really just for us voting today, just to find out where the top choices are for everyone. As I mentioned before, and this may have been before you typed your question, it's quite possible we could have many more than 2 of these, but we wanted to select just a small enough number to make you have to pick what your favorites are. Doesn't mean we can't do it all, but we just want to make sure that we know what's most important to everyone. And we'll have lots more activities to share with you after this. This is the first section of 8. So I will.
Yeah, Katie, let's go ahead
Yeah,
and
we'll
launch the
mosey.
question,
All
and then
right.
we can talk while people answer them because we have
Great.
some other questions.
Wonderful.
That's my job. Make us mosey.
Yeah, that's you need a taskmaster in every meeting. All right, so you all should have seen a poll come up, and we'll give it about 20 or 30 seconds. We're asking to pick 2 and then hit submit.
So there's a good question that came from Daisy. Thanks, Daisy. Are there any that are cost efficient to maximize space and budgets? So Katie, I'll let you take that one or hand it off to someone. I think that's a good question, but I want to be clear at this point, we don't want you to think budget. We want you to pick what you want to see. But go ahead, Katie.
Sure. Actually, I might hand that off to Krista, our recreation specialist, because she might have some extra helpful thoughts there.
I'd be happy to answer that. Thank you. Hello, everyone. It's so nice that you're all here and answering questions and giving us input. And in terms of more cost-effective pool features, definitely the rectangular pools are very cost-effective, easy to build. The formwork is easy to build, a little bit simpler to build. Pools in general are expensive to build just because of all the pumps and the systems and filtration that has to happen. The curvy ones might get a little more expensive, but not by a lot. So some of these, like the water feature on the middle left side that says interactive playing, those tend to be about $150,000. So those tend to cost a lot of money, but they actually, you get so much out of that one feature that it's really nice to have. So, but again, like Molly said, we definitely want you to choose the things you like, because in general, pools will be a little bit expensive, but it's worth all of it if you guys are looking for all those fun swimming amenities.
And thank you very much for that, Krista. So we're about 2 minutes into the pool. And so we've gotten quite a bit of responses. I'll give another 5 seconds or so, because I know that this is such a big amenity and that people are probably going back and forth on what their top 2 will be. So if you could start putting in the last of your responses. Again, this won't be the last time we hear for this.
Okay, I see the results are up. Lots of popularity for lap swimming and interactive play features, but it seems like it's almost a toss-up between the remaining features. Obviously, aquatics is going to be a really exciting component, so we'll see what creative means we can use to incorporate as many as we can. All right, well, I'm going to keep moseying here into our next section, which is the gymnasium, and I'll go a little bit faster. So we'll do it as a fast-paced game here. We'll have 7 images of 7 activities, and then you will pick your top 3 at the end. So first one, very popular choice, almost goes without saying, basketball in the gymnasium. Volleyball as well, which can often be played in the same kind of striping and surfaces. Pickleball is quite popular of late. We've actually got little indoor futsal in the background here, but we're looking at these guys out front playing pickleball. Badminton. Indoor futsal, again, this is a much larger version than the version we just saw. So this would provide an indoor option for football or soccer. Wrestling. And finally, running, jogging, and walking, which often has a track wrapping around a court. So we often see that in a gymnasium. So I will go to the next slide, which again, we will, if there are any questions specifically about any of these activities, we can pause for those, or I will pause only briefly in the interest of time, and then Jesus can launch the poll at whatever moment you feel is appropriate. And for this poll, we would be picking your top 3 activities that you would want to do in a gymnasium.
Zeus, in the meantime, can you translate Norma's comment for us?
Of course. So Norma has said, is saying that she hopes that there is a lot more pool so that everyone in the community has an opportunity to enjoy of their new recreation center.
Mhm.
And then she does just remind that SWIC, also in Southwest Denver, has a gym that they are able to share and open up to the community.
Thank you.
Great. And I see Esmeralda's comment we've actually got coming up later in the presentation for an arts multi-purpose room. So good thinking. All right, so hopefully is everyone wrapping up their poll responses, hitting that submit button soon?
And with this, I will just remind you, on some of these questions, you may have to scroll to see all the options. There'll be some other ones where you may have to scroll if you're seeing it on the screen, but not in the poll. Try to scroll down a little and see if you get the option that you're looking for. Okay, we're having responses slow down. Again, I'll give about another 5 seconds.
Look at that. People are not pickleball or wrestling fans in this house.
There you go. Yeah, so very true. Futsal, basketball, volleyball are obviously all great and wonderful choices here. And then running, jogging, and walking gatherings too. Still have
Sometimes
on
it
our
really is important
survey.
to know what they don't want, right, Katie?
Yeah, absolutely. That's part of the binary part of the process, I guess. All right. Well, I am going to cruise on into our next section, which is outdoor recreation. And I've got 7 images to share with you. And for the voting purposes, we're going to ask to pick 2 of your favorites. All right, so obviously a great first one is a playground space. We do know we have some nearby. However, it can be a wonderful amenity to have as part of a recreation center as well, as we know. This is probably our longest title. High intensity interval training, or sometimes functional training, can happen outdoors very often with some limited equipment outside. Outdoor climbing. We actually have a climbing section all separate, but for this one, we thought we would put it with outdoor recreation. There can be either outdoor bouldering, which you really just hop on and climb, as I'm sure many people's children have done on their own on things that don't look like this, or and it can actually be on the side of a taller portion of the building with ropes as well. Outdoor recreation weightlifting, sometimes with free weights or other types of equipment that can take advantage of our beautiful weather. Outdoor yoga, again, great for a beautiful day like we will have this weekend. Outdoor classes. So in addition just to yoga on their own, I think we have a possible comment coming, maybe not. But outdoor classes led by an instructor. And then finally, we'll close with outdoor recreation. We left this pretty open-ended, but performance and gatherings. So this could be a great big community gathering, maybe music, maybe dancing, maybe who knows what, but outdoor gatherings of some kind. So that was a lot of images, but we'll pause again if there are any comments or questions. I'm seeing hit is an option, yes, with many S's. So that's
Yo tengo un comentario ante todo, antes de que avancemos, porque aquí estamos varios aquí sentados junto conmigo. Pero miren, honestamente, gastar el dinero en cosas exteriores es como quitarle la vista o el gran esfuerzo de la activación de Westwood Park. Ahí hay equipo para hacer ejercicio, estamos hablando de unas cuantas cuadras. También el espacio de la cancha de futsal rápido que está ahí en el corazón, a un lado del corazón. Como vuelvo a mencionar, la comunidad, de verdad, escuchemos lo que la comunidad quiere, desea y ha luchado por más piscinas, chorritos de agua, espacios más atractivos adentro del centro de recreación. Porque si invertimos nuestro dinerito en cosas de afuera, seguimos. Nuestro barrio tenemos que tener cuidado con que la inseguridad, no hay mucha, como están diciendo, no hay mucho presupuesto y lo empezamos a gastar con implementar hermoso pasto, hermosas bases para que hagan ejercicio. No, tenemos un parque tan hermoso, el Westwood Park. Tenemos una cancha tan hermosa en el edificio eso del suite. Solo es dárselo a la comunidad. Motivar a la comunidad que vaya a esos espacios. Ya vamos a tener una biblioteca. O sea, el centro de recreación en sí, a lo que yo he escuchado de la comunidad, de lo que estoy escuchando en estos momentos, es más agua, piscinas, chorritos de agua. Entonces, escuchemos realmente a la comunidad y quitemos todos estos sueños de hacer yoga afuera. Podemos tener un pequeño espacio donde adentro podemos tenerlo y no implementar cosas caras afuera.
And that's a great, I mean, I think we hear you loud and clear. We obviously know there's some major programming elements desired inside, like aquatics. But what we want to do today really is we actually don't want to limit anything for you. We want to make sure that we're hearing that loud and clear still. And I think we are, which is great. But make sure we're not missing anything. So I think once we move on from here, and we know that, that's still the priorities that we have, the next time that we meet, we'll be able to confirm that and make sure that we didn't miss anything. So thank you for that comment. Okay, and I suppose we could, should we launch the poll, Jesus, just in the interest of time? I don't want to ignore anyone's comments that are coming up though.
No, of course, we will launch it. And then again, one thing just to mention, especially with the outdoor recreation, everyone should be seeing the poll. Take your time to select the 2 activities that you all would like to see. Is that the commitment from Parks and Recreation, especially in this neighborhood that lacks green space and space for activity, and a pool is one of those things that is really lacking in the neighborhood. That's why we were looking for something that would be able to accommodate some of the outdoor space, because we wanted it to look active, not just on the inside of the recreation center, but on the outside. And so if people see activity happening on the outside, they could go in and enjoy some of the things inside. And again, it's making it a full recreation center. A lot of our recreation centers are already in parks. This one, unfortunately, we couldn't find that to work in the neighborhood, but that's why we're trying to get the different options of what works in this community and what would be able to be implemented. And that's something that we will continue to work on. And we do understand that a pool is a very important feature for the neighborhood, but we also want to understand what other features might be important.
Thanks, Jesus. It looks like everyone in the comments section is getting real excited about splash pads, which I don't know, but those are expensive too, and we can talk about that. But I really appreciate you guys putting things in the chat that were not in here. So thank you.
Absolutely, that is what it's for. So we definitely want to hear it. Awesome. All right, how's that poll coming?
And we'll give another 5 seconds.
Right.
Again, not a lot of people are responding. It may be to the conversation that's happening on whether this might take additional space for other amenities.
Mm,
So I'll just give people a couple more minutes
And let me be
or a couple more
clear,
seconds. Excuse me.
I think Jesus did say it really well, but that in our, and Katie mentioned it too, in our next public meeting, we are going to dive deeper into what trade-offs need to happen and how we're prioritizing this. But we want to hear from you, your dream rec center right now, which if it includes outdoor space, what that would include. But I hear you, Norma, on we definitely don't want to duplicate efforts, especially if you have amenities elsewhere in the community. I know Westwood Park is getting expanded. We're very excited about that. We don't want to duplicate efforts.
Yeah.
So thank you.
And I'll share the results. There are others in the chat that agree with the sentiment on the pool.
yeah,
So that is something that we're hearing.
great. All right, and we're seeing lots for HIIT, as I'll call it, high intensity interval training and outdoor climbing, performance and gatherings, which can be a very nice flexible option too, and an affordable one. And outdoor classes are all ranking quite high there. I'm going to close that. All right, well, I'm going to move on to climbing. And I'll try and go fast. Again, there's only 3 of these, and we're just going to ask you to pick one, which again doesn't mean it's the only thing. But so climbing, bouldering can happen in a relatively small space, and you really don't need any ropes, not a lot of equipment. Pretty easy to just hop on there as long as you're strong enough for the task. Top rope climbing is the more traditional rock climbing. It happens in a usually much taller space. And then this one was new to me before this project, but auto belay, so that you can climb on your own without a partner belaying you up from the ground, which can be very handy. So that's just 3 for climbing. I think should we just launch right into the poll? I want to be respectful of everyone's time to make sure we get through everything. So we'd ask you to just pick one of these climbing activities, and then from there we'll move on to fitness.
I had never heard of that auto belay either.
Yeah, it's pretty
That
cool.
does sound fun.
I know everyone can see the sun is setting on my head here.
We'll give it another few seconds, Jesus.
Yeah, then let's be right here. That'll be good.
Okay, I will be closing the polling and sharing the results.
Great. All right. Wow, very strong for auto belay and bouldering. No votes for top rope climbing. Wow, for something I'd never even heard of before a couple weeks ago. That's amazing. All right, well, I'm going to keep cruising into fitness here. And we have got 4 slides, and we're actually just only going to ask you to pick 3. So this is an easier vote. We're definitely going to have fitness facilities in this building. Every rec center does and should. So this is a softball one. So fitness, cardio equipment, fitness weight equipment, free weights. And we've also got CrossFit and boot camp in under fitness, since there are some equipment needs there for sure. All right, well, I will cruise on to the voting slide here. Again, if there's any questions that come up, feel free to put them in the chat. Otherwise, Jesus, you can launch the poll, and you're just picking 3, so this should probably be pretty easy.
This one's slowing down a bit, so I'll give another 5 seconds or so. That way people could remove their least favorite. Okay, I'll be ending the poll.
Okay. Mine, it's coming right down in order. Cardio and weight equipment entry weights have won the votes, but not by a strong margin. Okay. So from here, I'll go to what is our largest category, which is a multi-purpose studio. And we've got 2 categories for multi-purpose spaces because there are so many different activities, obviously, that can happen in a multi-purpose space. So we're doing multi-purpose studio first, which is more tuned to exercise and exercise equipment. After this section, we'll have a multi-purpose classroom section, which is where you'll see things more like arts and music crop up. So that's still coming. For the next one, we're going to focus on multi-purpose studio, and we've got 9 of these to share. So one is yoga and Pilates, and you'll be picking, let me see here, your top 4. So that's helpful. Aerobics and Zumba, which I think based on our first poll will probably be quite popular. Body pump, more intense. Cycling in a class format with an instructor. Dance of many, many kinds and varieties. The art and practice of Tai Chi, strength and balance. Gymnastics. Martial arts. Boxing, which can be with partners or instructors or with bags. Okay, and that's all 9 of our images. So we are asking for you all to select 4. And oh, it looks like we have some volunteers for teaching body pump. So there you go. I guess we have to do it now. That sounds great. But if there are any additional questions, feel free to put them in the chat. But Jesus, I think you can run the poll and you'll be picking your top 4.
And so on this one, we might give a little more time since there's so many options.
There are.
One thing to remember is to scroll down and make sure that if there are some of the options that you're seeing on the screen but may not see on the survey, if you scroll, it may be below.
Seth is one of our rec directors who just put in the chat that DPR is hiring fitness instructors right now. So you guys can look up if anyone is certified and in need of a fun job, you can look it up. There you go. Hi, Seth. Thanks for joining us.
Okay. So with responses slowing down, I'll give another 5 seconds or so for people to get in their final votes, and then we will share the results.
Seth, do you have more to say about the jobs?
So if folks are interested, we have lots of positions available right now within our department. And if they go to their search engine, such as Google or something else, and type in Denver City Jobs, it'll take you to the Denver, the website that has all the city jobs. And at the top, if you just type in recreation, it'll bring up all the recreation positions that we currently have open right now. So we're most needing rec instructors and lifeguards right now. So if anybody's interested, we would love to have you, and you don't have to be a certified lifeguard. We will train you to be a lifeguard. So please call us.
Thanks, Seth. Go ahead, Katie, with the survey results.
Okay.
Thank you, Seth.
Sharing the results.
Great. All right. I won my own personal bet. Aerobics and Zumba is our top choice, and dance, and martial arts and yoga and Pilates are also very popular. Wonderful. All right. Well, I will
And-
move. Oh, go ahead, Molly.
Oh, I just see that Esmeralda said some of the suggestion her teen gave are not in the poll. And I know I made a plug for hearing from the teenagers. So please have them email me or, get in touch. You email me and let me know it's from your teen. Or if you guys have suggestions, please, I will take those as well. It's westwoodrec@denvergov.org, and it will be on the last slide. So go ahead and I'll type it in the chat.
All right, we got a thumbs up. Awesome. Okay, well, I will move next into multi-purpose classroom, which I just mentioned earlier will be more of the classroom style of multi-purpose spaces. And we will have 5 images to look at, and you'll be selecting 2 for your top priorities in the vote. So this was an interesting one. This is offered at some rec centers, not very many, but we wanted to see if there was desire or interest for it, which is pottery. Also more fine arts classes and fine arts studio space. We heard from one of our community advisory group members that she had a really wonderful comment about both making and displaying art in the building as a way to inspire pride in the rec center and the neighborhood. I'm paraphrasing. She's probably on the meeting and can say it much better, but it was a very lovely comment. Computer classes for all ages. And more crafts type of art, so sewing, knitting, and crochet, I guess more fabric-based types of arts, and music classes and playing music in small groups. All right, so for this one, we are asking for your top 2 choices in the poll. And again, any questions or feedback in the chat, we will scan for those. Oh,
so Michelle asks a really good question about, could the classes be taught by local artists or would it be by DPR staff? And it actually varies. Seth, actually, can I call on you to talk about, we kind of have different models depending on what classes are being offered, correct?
Yeah, we really do. So we have a arts and culture team. And as a part of one of the things that team does is hire instructors. So we usually look to the community to identify folks that are interested in doing this type of instruction and try to match them with the center, the community that they're interested in working in. We do also have instances where we have folks teaching classes that are not our instructors. Sometimes that's partnerships through folks that are already doing arts in the community. And so when they offer that service for free, we provide our space for free. So, and then we also, the third option would be facility rentals. Sometimes folks will rent our rooms in order to teach a class. In those situations, they're usually folks are paying to attend that class.
Thank you, Seth. I'll give another 5 seconds or so. Hopefully with Seth's explanation on how some of the classes work, that was able to give people some time to decide what they would want.
Okay, yeah, big, I think neck and neck for art classes and studio space and music classes, but also pottery and computer were pretty popular too. Okay, we're getting close, guys. We're up to our last category of what we're calling community spaces. So these might be, it's a little bit more open-ended. And so we're going to have 4 images and have you select 2. And then after that, hopefully you have lots more ideas and you probably are noticing that there are some things you haven't seen yet. So after we get through community spaces, we'll have some more open play in the chat for any additional activities. So on to community spaces. So this is kind of the indoor gathering version. We looked at outdoor dance and performance and gatherings, but indoors is often needed for, that other half of the year when the weather's not so nice, or when you might need facilities adjacent to a gathering for things like food. Another could be meditation and spiritual practice, smudging practices or meditation or other wellness type small spaces. Community kitchen. We know that we have some facilities in the neighborhood as well, but we did want to throw this out here just to see if there is still interest. And again, we will prioritize and look at the other services that are available in the neighborhood before we build anything too redundantly. And finally, lounge spaces, which is more of just informal gathering kinds of spaces where we might be able to meet someone at the rec center. Okay, so this I think is our final poll here. So we would have you select 2 of these options for community spaces. And I do see some more comments coming in from Norma and someone. They're both unfortunately in Spanish and I cannot read them. So
Yeah.
Jesus, if you're able to translate,
Yep.
that's wonderful.
Let me launch the poll, and then Norma is more of a question. So she's saying that we're speaking of large spaces, but some of the activities are need fairly small spaces. So what would the dividers be?
Well, I think it would be great to know the kinds of gatherings people are thinking of, because that would be where we tune the size of the space. The picture we're showing here is obviously in a gymnasium, so this is a really big gathering, but some of those multi-purpose rooms are perfect for a smaller group of, say, 35 people or less. There was a great comment from someone earlier that oftentimes in the public process, what gets missed is meeting room spaces, which we don't have shown here. So that was a great comment and something to think about too for the next slide or two. So yeah, multi-purpose spaces, but the gym often fits the bill for the really, really big gatherings. The multi-purpose rooms are great for smaller.
And so I'll give about another 5 seconds. Thank you for that, Katie. The second comment, I think, is actually going to be able to open our final portion. That's more a discussion.
Cool. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So gathering a very popular choice and all the shapes and sizes that it may take, and then pretty even results for meditation and spiritual practice, community kitchen and lounge. All right. So for the next slide, as I was mentioning, we can have this, after this, we really just have a discussion slide and just a reminder of the email address and web address for feedback. So this is, I would say, pretty much our open feedback time for any activities that you did not see here tonight that you want to see, or any other questions or discussion.
And on here, you could either use the chat or feel free to raise your hand to talk to the architects directly, talk to Katie's team, DPRs, and your neighbors. We had great turnout today. We do ask just to be respectful of everyone. So feel free to raise your hand if there's something you want to, an activity you didn't see or something that you would like us to further consider.
All right. I see some hand raising. Molly or Jesus, do you want to be selecting the hands?
Yeah, I saw the Maldonado family go up first and then Norma. So let's go ahead and do Maldonado family and then we'll go to Norma. Go ahead.
Hey there. So our property literally hugs the fence line right next door to it. So our biggest concern is a little bit of safety. However, we're wondering how quiet and how we're going to utilize the space of where the actual building will be. And we're not sure how the building codes go, but or how a draft will be actually done. But we're just kind of concerned a little bit for privacy and how quiet will it still remain on the side. I think that's kind of our biggest concerns, because when it's on the backside, not facing Morrison, you're hugging up next to properties behind that. So just wasn't sure of the thought process or what that would look like.
Mm-hmm. It's a great question. We will, it's required by zoning code as well. And we would also want to do this, provide some kind of screening against adjacent properties. Usually that's with landscaping and a fence is usually what's required, but that can be helpful with both visual screening and sound. And I think with the exception, I would say, of if there are possible large outdoor gatherings on a weekend sometime, I believe the neighborhood rec center hours might not be as concerning as far as any noise concerns at night. But Molly, you might be able to speak a little bit more towards the typical operating hours. But as far as where the mass of the building is going to fall, we actually don't know yet, because we want to get this input dialed in first before we start nailing down our size and shapes of spaces. So go ahead, Molly.
Yeah, I do think the hours will, most rec centers close around 8. However, I will say that this space is, there's only some of it that borders the busy streets, so or that borders houses. Most of it is not most of it, some of it is along Morrison, and then has that corner of Novo Legal and those sorts of things are on the other side. So hopefully we can adjust and accommodate for the residential homes and being able to really minimize noise. But that is to be determined. And it's good that you're here advocating for the houses, because we certainly want to keep that in mind as we dive into the design process.
Yeah, I mean, I think just to follow up, I think our biggest concern is just kind of traffic and how the space flows. We're wondering, is there going to be more of a peaceful greenscape, or is it going to be open at all times of day, even past 9 o'clock, to where someone's going to be walking back and forth? And, we just don't want them hopping over fences or can view into the other properties. We kind of want to sway more towards, wherever it's going to be more active, to where it's more street based, not so much closer to the homes and properties. So I think that's our biggest concern. What about security too? Is there any security plans for cameras or anything like that?
That's a good question. We do have cameras at some of our facilities. Seth, can you speak to that at all about security measures? Thanks, Seth. I'm calling on you a lot.
So we're actually, at this point, we only have a small number of our buildings that don't have security systems that include a camera system. All of our new buildings all have security systems with cameras positioned throughout the inside of the building and around the exterior of the building.
Thank you, Seth. Yeah. Go ahead, Jesus.
Molly, just before we call on the hand raise, I do want to make sure we get some of the chats, because people are putting a lot of information on the chat also. So this is the one I was talking about that may lead us right into the discussion, that there's a person in the chat that feels that some of the activities that we're putting out as options for the rec center will be are currently either available in the neighborhood or will be available when the library is complete. Especially the last 2 activities that we were sharing.
Great. That's absolutely right. And we know that very well because we happen to be the architects for Westwood Redeemer. So we know that one too well, probably. But another great point that's been brought up a couple times to ensure that we're not building in facilities redundantly with our funds that we have.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. Let's go ahead. We'll go back to the chat, but go ahead, Norma. I want to give you a chance to ask your question. Oh, you just unmuted and then muted again.
Ahora sí. Sí, algo que estaba viendo también de lo de la seguridad, gracias que lo dijo la familia, Maldonado, pero digo, la seguridad de ese centro de recreación y algo que a mí sí me gustaría que desde ahorita los arquitectos ya supieran o conocieran la diversidad de recursos que existen aquí cerca en el vecindario o no nomás Westwood, sino de todo alrededor del centro de recreación para no duplicar, como vuelvo, insisto, estaba viendo mensajes que me están diciendo otra vez de la piscina, están poniéndolo muy bonito con cocina, con no sé qué tanto, entonces sabemos de otros edificios, entonces Jesús o quien esté encargado, por favor, hagámoslo saber al arquitecto o al planeador qué otros recursos ya hay aquí cercas para toda la comunidad y no duplicarlo, porque las preguntas que me están llegando a mi celular, puedo tomar foto y mandárselas para que vean los mensajes realmente. Y también la seguridad es bien importante, o el alumbrado. Yo no, en todas esas encuestas o preguntas que hicieron, nunca vi el alumbrado y la seguridad. Entonces, siempre que hemos planeado algo como los parques o el Cuatro Vientos o el Westwood Park, si recordamos, la gente decía alumbrado para evitar más inseguridad. Entonces pónganlo para que también, sé que va a costar un poquito del recurso que tenemos, pero es importante para la comunidad.
Thanks, Norma. I hear that loud and clear. There's a lot of comments in the chat about security as well. So we do have someone on the team, on the project team, that kind of looks at the security of the building operationally, and we will continue to make this a very high priority of the recreation center. One of those, I don't know if you caught it in the word cloud, one of the things besides community that was really important was safety. So we will be sure to prioritize that as well. It's great hearing that that is a priority for you all. It's definitely a priority for us. We're not going to design that. We will design this with that in mind, that it needs to be a safe space, because we know that people won't visit it if they don't feel safe. So thank you for that. And lighting, I think, is necessary in that. So I've written that down as well. And that wasn't a feature we included, but it's definitely a feature that we have in mind, for sure. And I've also seen locker rooms, and we didn't include that either. But locker rooms do come with a pool. So you have that to look forward to. Katie, I don't know if you have other comments about the safety and security of the building that you can.
Just to echo you there, absolutely, we understand our concern, and we will be thinking about that both earlier in the design, because a big part of safety is just visibility from more populated streets into and out of spaces, and also the more technology side of things, cameras and where they go. We have engineers on our team that specialize in those as well. Darn, I was going to mention something else, but it escaped my mind. Maybe it'll come to me later.
Yeah, that's okay. So I see parking, and I know we only have a minute, so I'm going to wrap this up. If you guys, I think Jesus put it in the chat, but we will, can we actually go to the last slide? There we go. Our email, westwoodrec@denvergov.org. I know we didn't get to all the questions tonight. I really thank you all for your enthusiasm. We are going to have another public meeting. We hope to do it in person. We are fully planning on it if COVID rates continue to be as low as they are now. But please email us any questions, any comments, westwoodrec@denvergov.org. Visit the website, it's in the chat. We will be posting this recording to the website. Probably give us a little time. It will be available in Spanish and Vietnamese as well. but it should be there in the next week or so. And we do want to do a public meeting again in person in April, where or May, sorry, thank you, Katie, where we will have actual kind of concepts and flesh this out a little bit with your priorities, to really dive deeper, and make sure that we are headed in the right direction. We will have some of those financial conversations, what trade-offs will have to happen, things like that. So this is just the beginning.
Great.
With that, thank you, Daisy. I think we are definitely open to having side conversations with feedback. So please reach out to us. But with that, it's 7:01 and I don't want to keep anyone.
Thank you so much again, everyone, for all your wonderful input. This will only be a great building if it's of Westwood and for Westwood, and very much needs your input. So we really appreciate your time.